All righty. Well, good a time as any. We'll go ahead and transition over to the Q&A portion here. So whatever may have been scratching your head about in the past week or even longer, things you want to get insight from other coaches or other clients about. Mr. Caleb Bird, you're hot and ready.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Meeting with Nicole earlier this week, made a good point to ask at the group call, but just curious who you guys use for financing. We've come across some different ones, Hearth, Green Sky, we use Buildertrend, and they offer some really good services, but it's more of a pay to play. So just, looking for any feedback from you.
Oh yeah. Anybody want to jump in with ones that they're actually using? Of course, we have recommendations, but
we're in the final stages of the approval process with our local credit union. They'll do up to $40,000, and they said on pristine credit they'll do up to $50,000, which it's a quick approval process. And it's not like a Beneficial or HFC who basically it's 30% interest to your client. So this is more reasonable and I think a good package to offer somebody. So if you're a member of a credit union in your local area, I would check with them. They may have business financing or business sales financing available.
Yeah, good to know. Thank you.
Nice. Carlos, what do you got?
We use Synchrony for all of our financing needs. There's a lot of options for financing, so a lot of terms, and also you gotta be mindful though. There's a fee for using Synchrony, but they do have other options where there isn't a fee or it's a small fee for using them. So, and they're pretty good about the application process. It takes 5 minutes at the most. Just make sure the customer gets the paperwork.
Gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah.
Mr. Barnes, let us have it.
I just wondered on the credit union, like what do you need to have or have to apply? What kind of?
They required us to be in business for 2 years, and they require us to submit at least 3 applications a month. They don't have to get approved; they just have to be applications. So, and we're in the process of opening up a couple design centers, kitchen and bath design centers. So we will have more walk-in traffic. So, so from what we were doing to what we're doing now, it made sense to get set up with them.
Yeah, I like the local credit idea a lot.
Well, it's nicer when you can offer your client, 13% interest versus 30.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. Jordan, you want to chime in here? Oh, you're muted.
We also use Synchrony for some of our stuff. And within our software that we use, like kind of our engine, House Call Pro, they provide WiseTac, and WiseTac's really nice because it's all already like built in to the software. So you don't have to it just keeps everything in one spot. So for us, most of our stuff goes through WiseTac, but like what everyone else was saying, there are fees associated with us or with that. So we're charged 5% to use that financing, and then the customers also, set their interest terms with the. So kind of our workaround is we've just started increasing all of our invoices by 5%. So whether they pay by credit card or do financing or whatever they do, we don't have to get to the end where we're collecting the bill and say, hey, because you use financing, now we have to increase our price from $1,000 to $1,050. We just start right off the gate. This is a $1,050 job. And then whatever way they want to pay at the end, it's really irrelevant to us. We've encompassed all that already in our initial estimate, our initial invoice.
Yeah, that's big, Jordan. I think that's a really important way to frame it as well, is to price with the assumption that people are going to use a more convenient cost method, or not cost method, but a payment method for themselves. And then if they choose or they're asking for those discounts, then we can, come back down, but we're going to price assuming they're going to use the convenient methods. But that's
Yeah.
big. Anytime you have to do a fee, making sure that the client is, that's included in your pricing, that the client is accounting for that. Absolutely.
We found it gets really like messy when you're at the end and you're like, hey, because you're paying with a credit card, we're going to add a 3% fee onto this. We
Mhm.
just assume that everyone pays with financing, which is 5%. So, you know, whether they pay a check, whether they pay a credit card, whether they use financing, we don't have to get to the end and we're like trying to collect payment. And now at this point, we're fumbling around with changing the invoice right in front of the customer. It just, I found that looks really, we used to do that where we would increase the price if they used a credit card or whatever they did. And it just was a bad look. And it was really
Mhm.
funky. Sometimes the techs were out and they had to call the office to be like, hey, how do we do this? Or how do we do that? This way just makes it like a seamless process. And all of the cost is just hidden in the cost of the job. It's not above and beyond cost at the end because they're already going to be, they're already going to have those interest payments like other people were talking about.
I like that. I hate getting to the end of a deal and having somebody go, "Oh, you're going to use a credit card? It's another $175 or whatever." You know, it's irritating.
Yep.
Are you guys kind of like passively aggressively upset at Redmond Growth for moving to debit card primarily and beginning to charge a credit card fee?
I almost deleted all my Redmond Growth emails.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to let everyone know, in Power Builders, we give people options, but if they want to pay with credit card, we ask them ahead of time, right? It's part of like our onboarding process, how they want to pay. But if they say that they want to pay in credit card, we pay a 3% fee. Just because that's like last year, I think that was like a $35,000 annual expense for us, you know?
How am I going to get to your
And
grandpa? How am I going to get to your grandpa's conferences if I don't have those frequent flyer miles?
I think you should pay it. I think you should pay the 3% and get the miles. I think there's a lot of benefit to using a credit card that makes it worth charging a 3% fee, which is why people do it, you know? But yeah, I just thought that was funny that we hear our clients, Redmond Growth clients, like 2 days after we send an email about how we're changing our billing, going, man, just people who do that, they're just the worst, man. Like, I was like, okay, we get the feedback. Okay, we get the feedback. Oh, Scott, who's that? Is that your grandson?
Yeah, this is my youngest grandchild, Apollo. He's my youngest son.
Wow, what a strong name. That's awesome.
I didn't even know you could see him because I can't see him on the camera, but they're waving at
Yeah, we
everybody.
can see him in the, hey, Apollo.
All right, you go to school, okay?
Well, Chris got one with him too.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Well, I was just showing their friends, so I was just showing them, look, it's Apollo. Look, he's getting ready for school just like you.
Oh, wow. See, that's amazing.
See? You can see him right there.
Say hi to him.
Kids social
Dude.
hour.
Yeah, this group call has, for the first time in history, become a time for two children to hang out.
Look, there's Cora.
Oh, wow. That is so funny. For those that don't know,
Right. You guys
Scott
don't
has known my family, I think before I was born even. You because you started hanging out with my grandfather around the 1990, right?
I stayed at your parents' house when you were still in diapers.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a fun fact about Mr. Scott of AC Reservations. So, okay. Really good discussion. Really good discussion.
Yep. The one thing I'll add to that too, Caleb, you probably have heard this before too, from us if you're talking to us about it, but Enhancify is another one that we found that ends up going really well for people because they don't charge each time someone uses the financing. They'll just charge that annual fee, and then what you get for it is all dealing with the customer directly. And I think Carlos, you had your hand up, but put it back down so you may not.
Yeah, they've answered my question, so we're good.
Sweet. Good questions though. What other questions do we have this morning?
I don't have a question, but just to piggyback on the financing thing, I did sign up with Hearth earlier in the year, and just like anything, it's like, you know, you deal with a sales person to set it up. And originally out the gate, he was like, "Yeah, it's like $3,200 annual fee," and I was like, "Yeah, no thanks." And then he called me back like 2 days later. He's like, "Oh, you'll never believe this. I can get it down to like $2,800." I was like, I don't know, like maybe not. And then like a week later, he said, "You'll never believe this. I can get you signed up for $1,250." And I was like, "All right." So it
So,
Dude,
sounds
I
like
can't believe that.
That
There's-
they did
Dude,
that.
that
to me
is
a few years
amazing
ago.
that happened, that they dropped their price like that right when you were checking them out.
Yeah.
yeah.
And they,
So
they
I
got
had the
That's
same-
incredible.
same
What
thing
great
as well.
timing.
yeah, so I don't know if that's everyone or if the dude was just trying to make a quota, but I was like, all right. Well,
I had the same thing as well. It went from $3K to like $1,200.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Robert,
I
in the
think
orientation call, wasn't that you that said you got to push back like 3 times before people will acquiesce on their pricing or whatever? Didn't you tell us that
Me?
last week? Yeah.
that must have been Robert Barnes, man.
Somebody
I
said that
love
recently. They're
I
like,
love
you
the
got to push back
idea.
like 3 times.
Yeah, I was not able to be on the group call last week, so I know that was not me.
No, not the
But,
group call, the orientation call.
Oh,
I think you had mentioned something about that on that call, but either way,
yeah,
proof is in the
I'm
pudding.
trying to
Push back
remember.
3
I
times.
probably was talking about embracing discomfort, and that I don't remember the 3 times thing. I remember I told you guys, hey, embracing discomfort doesn't mean that you can't give your coach an earful if you're like frustrated or confused or need some help. So, coaches, those are the expectations I'm setting. Okay, Robert, did you have your hand up regarding something else besides what Riley was saying, or did you want to just contribute, chime in on that?
No, I was just saying the same thing, that they went from 3,000 something to 1,200 in a few calls. So
Yeah. Hey, I want to hop to Jordan real quick. I've got a couple of things, like cool stuff that I realized this week in working with clients and just in our own business that I wanted to share. But Jordan, let's go to you. Can Cornhuskers football do it this season?
Probably not.
I don't know, but I know that Oklahoma beat Michigan, and I know you're happy about that.
We went to the
Boomer Sooner, baby. I see the flag, Robert. Boomer Sooner. Let's go.
we went to
Yeah,
that
let's go.
game, and everybody was pretty impressed that we put 68 points up on the board, but they're like the 4th to last in all of Division I in terms of ranking. So not much. I felt like we we're kind of playing a JV team out there, but whatever. We'll see. We play Michigan in 2 weeks, so we'll see if we can beat them too. Anyways,
Yeah, they're easy for us. Okay, go ahead, dude. Sorry.
we are, or I'm wondering what service companies spend in terms of time for training on sales. So we have like our weekly meeting that is on Monday mornings. It's usually about a 30-minute meeting, and we try to hit high points, whether that's going over the one sheet or, you know, how to properly do things in the software. You know, whether that's building estimates, invoicing properly, things like that. And I feel like we're kind of lacking on the sales process. I'm not real happy with how my guys are going out individually and not presenting estimates to customers in person, not building a quality, you know, a lot of like, hey, we'll leave and get back to you. Anyways, I'm wondering for service companies, like how much time do you guys dedicate on a weekly, monthly basis in terms of, because I'm trying to get out of the process of me selling every job, especially now that we've moved to like a merit-based pay system where it's like, it's not true merit-based unless you are earning your job. It's not the same if I'm selling it for you and you're just installing it. I mean, I can find anybody to just be an installer. So I'm wondering, companies that are like service-based, plumbers, electricians, HVAC companies, what time they're dedicating and like what are high points that they're hitting in their training with their employees, because we're kind of just kind of going by the whim of our pants, and I feel like I'm not being effective with what I'm communicating to my employees to make them better. And I like to just get frustrated and like blame them and say that they suck, but I'm not probably looking in the mirror and saying, what can I do better?
I love that perspective. Yeah, here's something I realized this past week. So we had a situation over the weekend where and this isn't going to directly answer your question, but it's going to answer, I think, a really important thing that I've seen you over these last few weeks become, I feel like, more and more aware of, which is like, not why aren't they doing what I'm asking them to do? It's what do I need to change about myself, my business, my systems that creates an environment that causes them to do what needs to be done. And this past week, like, we were supposed to have one of our clients move back into their home on Saturday. We were like redoing all their carpets. We were just at that phase of the remodel where we're redoing all their carpets and doing a number of other things with drywall and some cabinetry. And there's just a lot going on. So the customer was like, hey, we're going to just get an Airbnb for a week. So they go out and get an Airbnb. It's supposed to move back on Saturday, had everything set up, schedule set up, confirming it the day of everything. Well, Friday, the carpet cleaning company or the carpet company just didn't finish the work. Right. And so we go there on Saturday to like inspect before the homeowner comes, and like it's just not done. And then we're calling our carpet sub, and there's just nothing, ghosting. Like I called them, each of the guys, 3 times. Our construction manager was calling them relentlessly, or my partner was calling them a number of times, and they're just nowhere to be found. So now the customer's super upset, right? And they're having to extend an extra night, and we're scrambling to find a carpet, and we end up getting him back in the home on Sunday, but that was like a big mess. And my partner and our construction manager ended up going out there personally and like to clean and vacuum and do all that, which is like we're doing like 5 projects right now, right? And that's typically not roles that they play, but they just needed to get it done. And internally there was a lot of talk of like, oh my gosh, this carpet sub screwed us. And then there was talk of like the homeowners being way too reactive and this isn't as big of a deal. And I just shared with our team, like, that just is never going to help us improve our business. Like blaming the external factors when in reality, like maybe there was a part we had to play with scheduling that could have been done better. Maybe this wasn't a sub that we should be using and we should have gotten rid of them before, right? Maybe we should have owned just like showing up and getting it done and being thorough and clean rather than blaming someone for being too sensitive. And I remember having this thought, because that ended up like changing our approach, ended up causing us to create some new systems to prevent that in the future. I remember having this thought that like it's typically in situations where I used to blame the person or blame externally or blame outwardly, that never helped us. But if I just can handle it and accept it and not take on the emotions and just say this is a problem that needs to be solved, what did we do wrong here, that it's actually a gift. Those difficult situations are actually gifts because they allow us to improve things. So I think that's a great perspective that you have, Jordan. And I just wanted to highlight on it. So the question is, how much time do service companies spend training their techs? Jordan wants to get guys in sales, especially now that there's merit-based pay. So does any of the service companies, I've got a few different examples I could give you, Jordan, but does any of the service companies have training systems or training processes or schedules that have worked really well for them?
And I know one of the things that I struggle with is it's like we've got jobs scheduled for the day, and like it seems like we're always booked out on the weeks, and I'm like, just get out there and make money, just get out there and make money, just get out there and make money. But we're not probably maximizing that because we're not spending the time on the front end to get the guys trained before they're going out there. So it's like I'm almost setting them up to fail because I'm pushing them out without the proper training. Is how as I'm thinking about it, how it's coming along, you know.
Yeah.
Not
So
that
there's this
but we could be doing much better.
there's this guy named Lee Cockrell who I've heard speak a few times, and he's like a motivational speaker, like a Zig Ziglar type. His whole thing was he was like the Golden Gavel winner for Toastmasters, which is like the annual award Toastmasters gives to like the best speaker. So he'd travel around and speak, and one of his talks I was listening to, he like gave this example about team training. And he's like, a lot of people don't invest in team training because they're like, hey, I don't want to invest in my guys, and then they just leave, right? Like I have all this time, all this energy, all this development invested in them. If they just leave, like it was a waste. And then he goes, okay, well, what happens if you don't train them and then they stay and they don't leave and they stick around, and now you have a bunch of untrained people who aren't leaving, right? So the importance is here, like emphasizing just the importance of team training. And Jordan, it's one of those things where the temptation to always not move towards a business that's system driven will always be there, because we're still, as entrepreneurs, coming out of the mentality of that got us to the point that we were at in the first place, which was we work, we follow money, we run calls when it comes in. We're at the mercy of the customer demands, right? We're at the mercy of the schedule. So that temptation will always be there, but that is a backwards way of thinking, because that backwards way of thinking will tell you that, oh, you need to get guys out to make a profit, right? That's more important now than the training thing. But the 1 hour a week spent training is what's going to allow your guys on every call throughout the, that week and more to make so much more profit for your business, right? So just first of all, be aware of that kind of like mentality. That isn't bad mentality. It's what got us all to the point that we got to on our own, right? It's like that hustle, work, follow the next call kind of thing. Here's two approaches towards service training I've seen work really well. Rogers Plumbing, he would do training for 45 minutes twice a week, right? He would do something that was like more technical training, right? Where they would review recent invoices and problems that they ran into in the past week, or questions that came up the past week. And he would review and break kind of down those problems with the team. They'd talk about it as a team. And then he would do something called Water Wednesdays, which Water Wednesdays were primarily meant on training his plumbing techs in selling water softeners and conditioners, right? Water systems. There's huge profits in plumbing for those water systems. But all he did was he started at 7:30, right? He blocked out, I think it was like 30 minutes or an hour, twice a week, and just come hell or high water. He started expecting going forward, we're all going to be here. This is mandatory. It's training. And the results were incredible, right? He had multiple techs on his team doing $400,000 or $500,000 a year, individually. I think one of them started hitting like 600,000. And he had a really high quality team, incredible reviews came from the training, right? So the first step is really just, dude, like schedule a time, even if you don't have all your ducks in a row as it relates to training, for training, and develop a culture of training, right? You can even start with just 30 minutes on the schedule, first thing in the morning, once a week. Tell your team, we start everything 30 minutes later on this day, right? Or you can just start the training 30 minutes earlier on that day, right? But that's the first thing. It's just scheduling a weekly time, making it a part of the culture, adding it in everyone's calendar, and letting them know that, this is what we're doing. Another plumbing company that I worked with, both these companies sold and did really, really well. I think that's another interesting thing. One sold for I think just over 2 million, and another one sold for like literally over $10 million. What this other company would do is they would have mandatory training every Friday, or I should say they would have a training time every Friday. And it was mandatory if your closing ratio dropped, I think it was like below 60%. And if it ever dropped below 60%, you would have to go to weekly training for 3 weeks. And if it wasn't fixed by 3 weeks, then there would just be another 3 weeks, right, until the problem was fixed. But they made training mandatory based upon the people who weren't able to meet like the minimum closing ratios, the minimum quotas. And what we did is we built out like a 3-week system that they just taught like every 3 weeks, like a revolving door, about like the 3 core parts of a service call. We have that training system in Dropbox that Nicole could give to you.
It's
And
in the chat
so-
as well.
Awesome. So yeah, that's what we did with a better plumber. And that's how it worked when they had 18 techs. They had 18 trucks, I should say. I think they have more techs than that, but they had 18 trucks on the road. So I think the concept here is, Jordan, is identify what's needed, right? Book a time, add it in everyone's calendars, tell everyone what you're doing. That will also hold you as an owner accountable for performing the training, right? It will remove those temptations to ignore the training because now you've set it in everyone's calendars and you've said, hey, this is what we're doing. So that's the first step. I think the second step would be making sure that you have a clear, defined service call outline of how to run a service call that you're training people in. And we have tons of those outlines. We have so many that we've made for service companies over the years. So anyway, that'd be my 2 cents. Benjamin, did you have something?
I was just going to ask Jordan if your question was more around like the content of teaching people in the sales capacity or the structure, because in my mind, like for me personally, the content is where because that's not my wheelhouse. That's not my strength at all. So it's like, I can facilitate a training session, but I don't know what the heck to even tell you people about how to sell anything, because I just kind of do it naturally, just build relationship. But when it comes to more specifics around the sales process for the individual business, that's where I would get hung up. So I just was asking to clarify, was yours more about structure or content?
All of the above. I know where we want to go is this, the model that's been taught to me by you guys and anybody else that I've listened to is you build value, you put in a price, and then you do the job and collect an invoice. I can tell from my guys so much. It's just they go out, look at the job, provide a price, and then that's it. It's just a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the price. We're not taking it to that next level, which is
That's weak, bro. That's a weak sales process. I'm just telling you right now. I'm not trying to be super critical, but I want to say that because I want you to like gain more profits with just like a little bit more effort.
No,
it will actually require less effort.
I completely agree. I mean, that's why I'm asking these questions is like, I feel like when my guys are going out, it's just like, here's the price, yes or no, thumbs up, thumbs down. And so like where I'm wanting to get them at is like, how are we building value before price is even talked about? And how are we getting into a premium, mid-range and basic level estimates and things like that?
Okay, so let's just go over some of the core mechanics of this right now. Because Ben is almost asking like the same question, right? He was asking Jordan to clarify, but Ben, you admitted yourself like, hey, if I was responsible for teaching content, I'm like, I just make stuff happen, right? I don't know what I'm doing. So first of all, there's a lesson here that I think is really important. And this is, again, part of like the part of growing a business that is you as an individual developing a mindset, changing a mindset, coming into a new mindset, coming into a new approach, coming into a new way to think about this kind of thing. And that new way to think about this kind of thing is that anything, Ben, that you do is duplicable, probably not to your level ever, but we can get people pretty close. Lance, I think it was you who shared this we did another workshop for non-Redmond growth clients, how to sell your business. We just did like a quick one. It was just me and Lance. We talked for like 90 minutes. And this is something that Lance shared last week where he was like, I think you called it owner syndrome. And it's just like a problem. He calls it owner syndrome. Lance Odell, who's here on this call, Right Flooring and Remodel in Austin. He calls it owner syndrome, which is basically like the idea that you as the owner is the only one who can do these certain things, right? And you don't know how to like teach or train or develop other people in them. And it keeps you stuck, right? There is absolutely a way to train people in this stuff. How do I know that? Well, you guys all know that because there's these huge companies, right, doing hundreds of millions in each of our fields that have huge teams that have figured out a way. So there's a way, right? The first step in avoiding owner syndrome is, first of all, accepting that anything I can do can be duplicated, maybe not to the same level that I do it, because you're going to be the best at selling your company forever, right? Maybe not to the level that you can do it, but maybe to 80% of the level, right? And it just starts with writing down each step you currently are taking. Ben, what I would do, for example, if you're like, how do I sell? And this systems, I think, are like, we talk about it for training other people, but owners need systems too, right? It makes your world so much easier, right? This past week, I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was sending out an invoice and we got a new construction software. There's all these new steps. And like, even though like sending out an invoice seemed something that was simple, right? It was like, in my head, it was like this big thing that was going to take like 30 minutes. And then I remembered, I was like, oh, wait, I forgot I had written down my own checklist a couple of weeks ago of how to do all these steps. I just pulled up the checklist. I had like templates and pre-written stuff everywhere. And then I just followed it and like had it done in 5 minutes, right? So systems aren't just helpful for training and developing your team. Owners need systems too, right? And how do you create a system? The next time you're doing the thing that you want to train or develop other people in, just write down in a Google Doc each individual step you take and default to write down too many steps, like default for it being too detailed. Because I have found that typically people are like, well, I've got a process. It's just like meet with the customer, like get measurements and like get kind of a general understanding scope of work and then make a bid. Well, okay, so like, how are you greeting the customer? Like, what are the first few questions that you're asking the customer, right? How are you transitioning from asking those questions to beginning to take measurements? What measurements are you making sure that you're taking, right? When you get into a discussion about scope of work, are you writing it down? How are you writing it down? What questions are you asking to extract the full scope of work to get all the details that someone may not realize are important, but are hidden in there and they're just not telling you, right? Because they don't. So it's like writing down the steps, and that's how you train people in the future. You train them in the thing that works, because if you're selling, you already know what works, and you just need to train people in your process, right? And Redmond Growth can give you a lot of these processes. Like we've already got for both of you guys, right? Processes on how to sell. But I really love it when owners take that first kind of step towards making a system, because I know that if you make something that you're going to believe in it and that you're going to be able to train other people in it because it's your approach, right? With us, we can teach you systems, right? But now you're teaching something Redmond Growth taught you, which is sometimes necessary, right? But I just love seeing owners take that first approach. So that's how you create systems. And that's what I'd recommend is, yes, I know it feels like you're just making stuff happen and you're like building relationships. But as you're building those relationships, try to be conscious of how you're building those relationships. What's kind of your default intuitive thing to do, right? Or ask or say or whatever. And begin writing down a little outline, right? Of what those calls, what those meetings, what those appointments look like. So for a service tech, the basic outline is basically this, right? You greet the customer in a friendly manner. I believe in the power of the uniform. for service techs. I don't think it needs to be a white button-up shirt. I believe in being in uniform, being clean, right? I believe in the default to wearing booties thing. Why? Because there's some people out there that get really sensitive about people walking on with shoes. Most people don't, but there's some people that do. If you default to the booties, right, you'll make sure that you'll take care of those people. So then, before you get even into the diagnostic or anything like that, you're having the tech introduce themselves. And you have the tech prepare ahead of time, like 3 or 4 bullet points on their introduction that explains how long they've been with your company, their licensure, how many years experience that they have, right? But you're first building the tech's credibility. And then the tech is building the company credibility by sharing those 4 or 5 things about your company that makes it different. Right? This whole process takes about 5 minutes, and it requires a tech just being intentional to cover it. And it can be very natural. It's going to feel unnatural at first, right? Because people are resistant to change, but it's very natural. Person walks in the home. They say, hey, so good to meet you. Thanks for calling us. I just want to introduce myself. My name's Robert Redmond. I've been with, JR Electric for 3 years. I have a journeyman's license in the state of Omaha. What that basically means is I've fulfilled this many hours of this done thing. I've spent 10 years working on service calls, which basically I'm just trying to tell you that you're in the right place, and whatever's going on today, we're going to figure it out, right? We're going to give you some options, right? And are you familiar with our company? Have you worked with us before? Oh, no, I'm not that familiar. Well, hey, here's kind of what makes us different. There's a lot of different electricians you can call. Bam, 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 bam. Then you do a quick overview of the process. Now, what I want to do here today is I want to inspect this area of your home. Then I'm going to put together a few different options for you. Typically what those options end up looking like is like a Band-Aid option, right? A okay option, right? A fix the problem option, and fix the problem to the best of our ability using the best materials option, right? And I'll explain which of these options, what they mean for you. And then you can just let me know what option you want to go with. And then from there, we'll go ahead and get this problem fixed. And then we'll just collect payment after the end of service. Does that sound good? Yeah. Okay, great. Tech does the diagnostic, right? They give them 3 options. Give them 3 options. There's a lot of software that you can build price books in, but I love the software Profit Rhino simply because it generates these 3 options, and it's a really strong user interface that's preloaded with like images of the equipment and like descriptions of it all. But then you're giving them 3 options, and then you're just saying, hey, here's the 3 different options we could do. Here's the option I recommend. Here's why I recommend it. Which option would you like to do? And then they just stand there and wait. Customer may ask more questions, right? All the tech is doing is demonstrating technical understanding, and it's genuinely recommending based upon technical understanding. Customer selects the option. Before the tech performs the work, they say, hey, by the way, before we do the work, at some point before we leave, we're going to do just a full house safety inspection. We're going to check, these components of your electrical system, plumbing system, HVAC system, whatever it is, just to make sure that there's no other problems happening today that would make it more expensive to fix in the future. It's just a part of what we do to take care of our customers. There's no obligation for additional work. I just want to make sure that when you have a licensed electrician in your home, you're aware of any other potential things in your home as well. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll wrap up, right? So then they do the job, they do the electrical inspection, they review the inspection, they give them options of when they could take care of things, right? What it might cost. If there's nothing wrong after they do the inspection, then they just say, everything looks good, right? We're not Jiffy Lube. We're not pulling out someone's air filter that was just replaced 2 weeks ago saying they need to replace it again, right? We're being honest with people. And then after you review the electrical inspection, if the customer decides that they want to do more work, You contact the tech, contacts the office, get some schedule for more work, or does the work there if they can. They collect payment, and then they say, how did you enjoy your experience today? And the customer says, we loved it. And then the tech says, hey, great. A big part of how people find out about us is through a Google review. I get a bonus also if customers leave a Google review. If I text you a link right now, could you share your experience in working with us? Yes. Tech sends the customer link right there. Tells them, hey, the only thing about me getting a bonus is I have to validate that someone left the review today. So if you could go ahead and leave that review today, right? If you want me to walk you through how to leave a review, great. After that, tech bounces, they've collected, job's done. So that's the outline of like a service call. And we have this written down in many forms. So that's what I would train your guys in, Jordan. And you're just training them in the same process forever. That same process. Because I guarantee you stuff's going to come up. They're going to be thrown curveballs. There are going to be nuances. There are going to be questions. There's going to be weird thoughts that we don't think of, that people have. And we're just getting them back to the process. It's almost like the concept of drifting. If you're aimless at sea, right? If you're not paddling in a certain direction, you just drift and drift and drift. And so all of a sudden you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, right? But if you're paddling towards a place, you're going to prevent from drifting. You're always bringing it back towards the same place, same destination. Boring business systems is what makes people millions.
No,
Boring, repeatable business systems.
when I do that stuff, I mean, like it seems automatic, you know, but like I wrote down all that stuff, and it's like it's easy, but like when you're sitting back when I'm sitting back in my chair and I'm thinking about just like what Benjamin said, like, okay, what does this process look like? I'm a little bit scatterbrained, so like it was nice to just be able to write down those bullet points that you just said.
Yeah,
very replicable, very easy to repeat.
that process hasn't changed in a long time. You know, there has been advancements to technology. That's awesome, but like I think it's going to be a while before AI robot replaces your electrical panel. So it's like we're following the same. It's the fundamentals, right? What caused Oklahoma to win was the fundamentals. I'm just kidding. Carlos, last question before we hop.
It's not really a question. It's to kind of like piggyback on
Comment,
your
yeah.
Profit Rhino. And I haven't done this, and I'm learning as I go, as I listen to you guys. But one of the things that I'm gonna start doing with my technician is actually on Profit Rhino, you get your good, better, best, your critical, whatever you want to call it. For us in the air conditioning business, it may mean using like a universal part versus a factory part. You know, there's a cost difference in between that. So with my technician, what I'm gonna start doing is having him screenshot that options that he presented to the customer and just adding it onto the notes. So if that way I know hey, you are doing what I'm asking you to do, but also let's say he put on there like a complementary part to help the system work better or to keep it from having any future issues. If the customer says, hey, you guys never offer me this, I can just, in a smart way, go, we
Beautiful
have the information saying we did, you know.
Beautiful. Those are the best kind of systems. Systems that hold everybody accountable, systems that protect your business, systems that can even help the customer, right? So I love it, man. That was so good.
And to anyone that's using or is in the service industry, the initial cost of Profit Rhino, it's like $1,500 to be frank with you, and it is a little expensive. However, having a technician grab their iPad and show them this is the stuff that we're going to use automatically takes the ownership away from the technician as far as saying we didn't just make this number up in a piece of paper.
100%.
It's
100%.
right here from the office with the information that you need. And then the customer can just scroll up and down and say, you know what, I want the critical. Fine, we'll do that one. But most of the time, people go right to the middle, which is the recommended. And then, of course, you have the top tier, which whatever you want to put on there.
So good. Could not agree more with everything you just said. Awesome feedback. Guys, Appreciate you guys. Great discussion today. Appreciate everyone who participates. Appreciate everyone who asks questions, who chimes in, gives opinions. I know it's not always easy talking to a big group, but it's where the growth is, man. Lean into that discomfort. All righty. Well, let's unmute our mics and do the growth countdown. Okay. Alex, good to see you, buddy. Alex came to my office this week. He came in from Sherman, Texas to hang out for a little bit. So it's great to have you, Alex. All right, guys. We're going to say growth on 3. If you're new, we're counting down from 3. 3, 2, 1. We say growth, right? 3, 2, 1. Growth.
Growth.
Let's go. Let's go. Everyone have a great weekend. We'll see you same time next week.
Go Eagles.
See you guys.
Peace.
Yeah. Fly birds.